am going to present two different ways to do the applique. One is with the freezer paper and starch method, and the other one is with a faced technique. So I'll start with the freezer paper and starch method. What that means is that we are going to take some freezer paper, make it into a template, and use that template to cut our shapes out. And then we are going to use starch to get that raw edge to fold over the template and stay in place. That's the gist of the freezer paper and starch method. We'll need the orange peel template shapes printed at actual size. This should measure 1 inch. You're going to need some freezer paper. This is Reynolds Kitchen freezer paper. It can be found in most grocery stores in the United States. It's not butcher paper, it's not parchment paper. Those are not the same thing. You can also find freezer paper for applique. This is just one example from the Gypsy Quilter. There are several manufacturers of applique paper. Here's another one from Cut Right. This is a heavy duty freezer paper, which I'm going to test out because I like the idea of that. So freezer paper has a shiny side and a paper side, and this is what we will make our templates from. Starch. This is the starch that I'm using. You can use any kind of starch. Whatever you have is going to be best. Paintbrushes. So these are paintbrushes that I got probably at my craft store that's local to me. This is a stencil brush. I've had it for a long time. Any kind of paintbrush that can go along the edges here, kids' paintbrushes. You can also use a Q-tip for this if you don't have a paintbrush. You'll need an iron to iron this edge over the freezer paper. I have a small travel iron here, but you can use any size iron. I've been using my full-size iron for most of mine. And then a stiletto or a seam ripper, this purple thing, something to help you grab the raw edge of the fabric and turn it over the template is helpful so your fingers don't get burned. For the faced method of applique, let me show you what that looks like. You will trace the template onto a fusible, lightweight fusible interfacing. And I've got my shape. I don't know if you can see it well, but it's been traced onto the interfacing, and then that gets placed onto the right side of the fabric. And we're going to use our sewing machine to stitch right on the line. And then we cut it out, make a hole in the interfacing, and turn it right side out. So this one has been done. Here's my little hole. So let me tell you what you'll need for this method. Lightweight fusible interfacing. There's several brands. This one is Select Cutaway, which is what I've been using. It's very sheer but very strong. One side is fusible and the other side is not. The problem that I'm having with this particular interfacing is that it's hard to tell which side is the fusible. But so far I've gotten lucky. The other more readily available interfacing is Peel 906F. This is a fusible shear weight, so it looks like this. It's very sheer, strong as well. And make sure that we're talking interfacing and not a fusible web bonding product. Turning tool. And this helps you to turn it out and get the points poked all the way out, and it just runs around the edges. And I find a friction pen is really nice to have when you're drawing the template onto the interfacing. This will iron away with heat and those marks will be gone. And another handy thing is to have a seam roller. It's not necessary, but it helps to get the edges nice and crisp. You can also use the point turner tool to do the same thing, or just use your fingers. Pinking shears are nice. They are an option, but I use pinking shears to cut the shapes out along the sewn lines, and it just helps to ease the fabric when I turn it right side out and prevents those tucks from forming along the edges. If you don't have pinking shears, don't worry about it. Regular scissors will work just fine. We'll just trim it a little bit closer, like 1/8 of an inch away when we do the trimming part.